Hey everybody, welcome to Last Week from the Table for February 16th, 2021. I'm your host, DM Gallibond. You know, sometimes D&D sessions go really well, and then there are weeks when all of your D&D sessions go really well. This past week was one of those weeks where all of the planets seemed to align, the stars were in their correct orbits, the universe sort of cooperated with everyone, and we really had some good sessions. Had a lot of fun uh, on all 3 nights, and I'm excited to talk to you about it this week on our session from last week from the table. All right, so let's take a look at what happened in each of these games. Thursday nights, we are playing through the Sword Coast Chronicles, 8 p.m. over on Twitch, twitch.tv/Gallibond. This is our love letter to the uh, published 5th edition campaigns from Wizards of the Coast. And what we're doing here is we are going through parts of the storyline, sort of weaving a story of my own creation that is based on the interconnectedness of the all of the published campaigns. Why are they all happening in the same time frame, in the same area of the world? Um, there has to be some sort of unifying reason to it. We're trying to explain what that reason is. And right now, the players are in the Underdark city of Gracklstugh, a city mainly populated by Duergar. They are the guests of the Deep King at his hold, something very unusual for any non Duergar. And they started the session uh, in the palace, bedding down for the night. Uh, Falazur, the bard, got a visitation from a wood elf after he had fallen asleep. A wood elf came into his room, and she was very scantily clad, scandalously so, and she came up with a story that she was a prisoner of the king and his consort, who had both done terrible things to her. An insight check said, that doesn't quite check out. So Falazur made a quip about trading favors for her freedom, and to which she responded with a smile, said that he was very clever, perhaps too clever, and then she just simply disappeared. So that was weird. Uh, he went and talked to the he went and talked to Mulek about that, and Mulek indicated that, uh, yeah, he thought that was very strange. There was no residual magic around, so they weren't quite sure whether that was some sort of illusion or whether that was real or whatnot, because there was, no physical interaction between Falazur and this elf. He just saw her over there in his room and talked to her. The Then they all had dreams. Um, Falliger dreamed of his warhorse Rusty. The warhorse Rusty was in a stable fit for a king, and he was having a bunch of mares in heat brought to him so that he could breed with them. Um, Kind of a weird dream there. The Mulek had a dream about a person that had wronged him in the past, someone that set him on the course of this adventure in the first place, and then saw that this person, a half elven woman, um, there was another woman that looked exactly like her. So he's kind of unsure what that means. Then there was the dwarf, Krenraid. He had a dream about being in a tavern with a bunch of buxom dwarf serving maids, and lining the entire room of the tavern were all of these brass taps. And in his dream he just turned all the taps on and ran around underneath them, catching ale in his mouth as he went. And all the dwarven maids started applauding to him and thinking that this was great fun. Um, so that was kind of a weird dream too. When they woke up the next day, they found that the Deep King was serving surface food for breakfast in honor of their guests. Uh, they were then brought to the throne room, where the king said that he was very concerned about some visions that his uh, that someone called the Stone Speaker had. The consort was also there, and they saw that the consort had a dress on that was made entirely of gold pieces. And so this was a very strange outfit. And they also noticed with the interaction, the king would speak, and at times the consort would just lay a hand on his arm, squeeze his arm, and he would either stop speaking or he would change what he was saying. She would lean down and whisper to him. He would then be prompted to speak other things. So this is very odd behavior, um, and they they were very uncertain about this. They also noticed that the only way they were allowed to have an audience alone with the king and the consort without other guards is because there was a wall of force erected. The king also is very suspicious of everybody, claims the only person he can trust in his entire castle is his consort. Suspicious! All the characters are very suspicious of this. Uh, they eventually found out that the stone speaker is in fact a stone giant that lives in an enclave of uh, Gracklstugh called Cairngorm Cavern. And so they went down to Cairngorm Cavern. They talked to the stone giant, the stone speaker. Haram is his name. And he says, he told them some visions that are similar to what they've already known. They could confirm that part of it had something to do with the cult of the dragon on the surface trying to raise Tiamat. But then he also confirmed that he was having visions similar to Renwick, where there was something evil stirring in the Underdark. But he's still not sure what it is. He mentioned something about a two-headed Leviathan, so they're kind of wondering what that's all about. Um, so they had the audience with him, and then at the end of the session, they were getting ready to go back to the deep hold. Now, something that both the king and the stone speaker talked about was the conflict between the wormsmith and the keepers of the flame. And the stone speaker confirmed there's this arrangement that the keepers of the flame have, where they always try to do away with the wormsmith before the dragon gets too big and too powerful, and replace it with a dragon egg. He confirmed that this egg is missing, and so the the only really curious thing that they had that made them uh, question their suspicions of the consort is that both the stone speaker and the consort initially said that they would recommend that the party uh, entreat with the dragon, with the wormsmith. Well, the party eventually convinced the Stone Speaker that if the Cult of the Dragon is trying to raise Tiamat, a red dragon is probably the last entity that you want to be dealing with. And the Stone Speaker said, "Oh, yeah, that makes sense." um, the Stone Speaker seemed to think that it was kind of a cruel practice uh, that the Keepers of the Flame, basically just raise a red dragon, um, try to keep it tame as long as they can in order to heat the forges of the city, and then kill it when it's no longer of any use to him or use to them. He seems to think that's cruel, but then he realized, yeah, a red dragon with Tiamat's influence loose in the world, that would be really bad for everybody. So they're going to leave the dragon alone for now. They're not going to get involved. At least I don't think that the party has that in their mind. They can surprise me. We're ready for whatever they decide to do. But they now are heading back to the king. They're very darn suspicious of the consort, and they know someone in the castle now that the Stone Speaker trusts that they should talk to, who has been a long-time servant of the king, and whom the Stone Speaker thinks is very loyal. So we'll have to see where this goes. Join us on Thursday night at 8 p.m. over on Twitch to find out what happens that um, in that particular campaign. Now, Saturday night at 7:30, we are playing through the Lost Mine of Phandelver with the original D&D rule set. This is a pretty fun game, and they are now starting to make their plans to assault Cairngorm or Cragmaw Castle. Um, Cairngorm Cavern, Cragmaw Castle. The two names are very similar. Poor DM is getting mixed up. Once again, you can find this live streamed over on twitch.tv/Gallibond. The party sat down with Clarg, with the goblins, with their retainers that they still have, and they said, "All right, how are we going to deal with this Cragmaw Castle?" Um, they had a bunch of different plans, and they spent a long time arguing what to do about the green slime. And the two wound up becoming related in this way. Uh, Amy, the witch slash magic user, she really wanted to try to make the green slime a pet. Everybody else was very leery of this because of the fact that green slimes, they can't help their nature, and anything that touches them just turns into green slime, including flesh, especially flesh. So everybody else is like, this is just an accident waiting to happen if you keep this around. But Mustard returned with the promised potion of plant control, and indeed, when Amy drank it, she found she had some sort of semblance of control over this green slime for a short period of time. They eventually talked her into having the green slime go into a stone sarcophagus where they could put a lid on it and at least keep it in there because the slime can't absorb stone. And they figure if it's in there, they can feed it every now and then, and once they figure out what to do with it. Well, during the session, a defector came from Cragmaw Castle. Uh, one of the bugbears that is sick and tired of King Groll, as the Hobgoblin calls himself, who rules Cragmaw Castle currently. And so he was a help in sort of giving them a diagram, a crude diagram and layout of Cragmaw Castle. They discussed what they would do when they got there and how they would try to infiltrate the castle. And this is where the green slime came back in. The defector reminded Clark that King Groll is still on the search for a legendary spear uh, of the goblinoids, and that it was rumored that this spear was stolen by a human. So what they said is they said, why don't we take a certain sarcophagus with us and tell Groll that this sarcophagus contains the remains of the human that stole this spear. Which sarcophagus are we going to take? The one that's filled with the green slime, of course. So we take the sarcophagus, we present it to King Groll. He opens the sarcophagus, he gets attacked by the slime, throws the entire castle into an uproar, and then the party and their allies can attack from the outside and and deal with that. The defector uh, decided that he would go back because he had told everybody he was going hunting. So they don't know that he's being disloyal. They don't know that he's leaving. Also, with them on the wagon carrying the sarcophagus would be a couple uh, of the goblins that are still with them from Cragmaw Hideout. After all, Cragmaw Hideout was an offshoot of Cragmaw Castle. And Clark has ambitions of overthrowing. Clark, who was sent over there to lead Cragmaw Hideout, has ambitions of overthrowing King Groll. Clark is also the completely charmed, loyal servant of Amy, whom everybody is calling Empress Amy, uh, because she wants to rule the world. Hey, that's fine. It's D&D. We can do what we want, right? So she is, has magical control over this Clark, and all of the rest of the goblins are following him. At least all the ones that are left alive from the Cragmaw hideout. So now they have a plan, and they in fact acted on the plan and went all the way to Cragmaw Castle. But we got there right at the end of the session, so we had like 10 minutes left in our time. I polled the players. The players said, "Hey, let's come back to this next week and let's start the assault of Cragmaw Castle next week." So we will be doing that next week. We will see how this goes, but they have a green slime. They have 3 or 4 bugbears that are with them. They have about half a dozen goblins. They have a few NPC retainers, and they have the 5 party members. And they've shown, they have learned through the mechanics of morale and everything in this edition of D&D that sometimes if you kill enough of the enemies and they realize you're more powerful, well, sometimes they'll run away, and sometimes they'll be like, wait a minute, why are we fighting against you? We should just join up with you and fight against the other people. So it's it's potential that they could wind up getting a whole castle full of more goblinoid followers. If King, if Clark can actually become king, in air quotes, of Cragmaw Castle, then everybody would be loyal to him because he is in turn loyal to Amy. And all Amy has to do is every couple of weeks just bibbly bobbly boop recharm Clark and kind of have indefinite control over him until he breaks it. But the nice thing is, in first edition or the original edition that we're using, the way charm person works, what happens after the charm wears off depends on how you've been treated by the person that had you charmed. So if the party has helped Clark become a king of Cragmaw Castle, he's going to see them as allies even after the charm wears off. probably. So it's very doubtful that there's going to be antagonism against it. Of course, you know, the party can always decide at some point, all right, Bugbear, Bugbear gotta go. But that'll be when they get a little bit more powerful on their own right. Because right now they're heavily outnumbered by their goblinoid allies. Okay, so that is Lost Mine of Original D&D. Join us Saturday 7:30 to find out what happens there. Then Sunday, Walker of Waterdeep. Sunday's 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Yesterday was Valentine's Day, and wow, serendipity, we had a really cool Valentine's Day episode. It was really not something I had planned. It was just something organically that came about from the players. Join us every week, twitch.tv/Gallibond. Um, the party is still at Manamo Academy, and they were finishing up um, some of their downtime activities that they wanted to do there. The There's been a brewing thing where the female half drow uh, druid is attracted to the male wood elf monk, and the male wood elf monk um, is is not is not necessarily uninterested in her, but he sort of sees her as a little sister. And she's got kind of romantic feelings for him. And so the player who's playing the monk is playing his character as if he's very clueless about, picking up on signals this from this person, and or from the druid. And it was uncomfortable how subtle the druid was trying to be, and how hard the monk was trying to just explain away the actions that this druid was taking. And it finally got to a point where they were they were getting to the point of almost arguing. And so as the players were getting to the point of almost arguing, and so as the DM, I kind of had to woe everything and say, "Hey, do you guys need to go, you know, take this off screen and workshop it a little bit and figure out what you want these two characters to do? Should we just move on?" And they were like, "No, no, I think we can work through it." So, all right, all right. And indeed, when they came back to it and worked through it, it just really became something that was a lot of fun for everyone, because all of the other characters could obviously see what was going on, and they could pick up on the signals of what was happening. But they could never convince the monk that the druid is really interested in him. So this is an ongoing thing, but that was the first time it was the first extended chance that those two characters, the druid and the monk, had a chance to be alone together, and for her to try to express her feelings for the monk, and for the monk to just so completely misread and misunderstand, and not pick up on the signals that she was giving him. It's It was classic, a classic D&D nerd not realizing somebody's in love with them story. Uh, it told through the lens of the characters, and that was just something very fun. So We all enjoyed that session. Everybody had a blast with it. All three sessions this week were a lot of fun. Now next week, Walker of Waterdeep, I think they're going to be ready to go ahead and advance the plot, but I'm just going to see where they are. Uh, One of the players asked to spend some time in the library, so there's a couple of things I want to give them between now and then on what they have discovered uh, about the topics they were researching. But otherwise, we will probably be getting on towards our next scheduled meeting with an important NPC, which will happen hopefully next week. And you can join us Sunday, 2 p.m. Eastern, twitch.tv/Gallibond to find out what's going on there. And the Walker of Waterdeep, of course, that is our uh, 5th edition Planeswalking campaign. And right now, everything that they are doing is in the plane of Kamigawa. So, just wanted to make sure that I was clear about that. All right, everyone. Thank you. Hope you have a wonderful, wonderful week. And we hope we'll see you back here next week on Last Week from the Table. Please remember, try to make your games entertaining so that you will have tales from your table that you can share as well. Good night, everybody.